Everyone knows how President John F. Kennedy died on November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas. But what if I told you that everything you heard was a lie? All documents that could answer your questions were destroyed or hidden one by one over 60 years. But when the truth came out, it would deal a heavy blow to the foundations of American democracy. Picture this. It's a bright November morning in Dallas. President Kennedy is riding in an open-top Lincoln Continental, waving to enthusiastic crowds lining Dealey Plaza. In 6 seconds, everything will change forever. But the question isn't what happened in those 6 seconds. The question is who planned it, who covered it up, and why the truth has been buried for over 60 years. Lee Harvey Oswald fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. That's the official story. But Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't just some random communist sympathizer. At age 17, he joined the U.S. Marines and was stationed at a CIA U-2 spy plane base in Japan. He received training in Russian language and radar operations. Then he defected to the Soviet Union in 1959, announcing he would give them classified military secrets. Here's where it gets interesting. When Oswald tried to return to America in 1962, the State Department welcomed him back with open arms. No charges for treason. The CIA even paid for his passage home. Documents declassified in 2017 revealed something explosive. Oswald had been in contact with CIA operatives throughout his time in Russia. He wasn't a defector. He was an asset. In the months before the assassination, Oswald was seen meeting with known CIA operatives in New Orleans and Mexico City. Witness statements describe Oswald receiving envelopes of cash from men in suits who would later be identified as working for the agency. Phone intercepts captured Oswald calling a CIA safe house in Mexico City just weeks before Kennedy's murder. Yet when the Warren Commission investigated, these intercepts mysteriously disappeared. And that's when things took an even darker turn. Just 48 hours after Oswald was arrested, before he could testify, he was shot dead in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters. His killer, Jack Ruby, a nightclub owner with deep connections to organized crime. FBI documents revealed Ruby had been making calls to mafia bosses in Chicago and New Orleans in the weeks before the assassination. He was $40,000 in debt to the mob. Ruby later told a reporter, "Everything is a conspiracy. They're going to kill me in here." He died in prison in 1967 before he could testify further. The official autopsy of President Kennedy is perhaps the most controversial medical examination in history. The doctors at Parkland Hospital in Dallas who first treated the dying president saw a massive exit wound in the back of his head, indicating shots fired from the front. They saw a small entrance wound in his throat. But when Kennedy's body arrived at Bethesda Naval Hospital for the official autopsy, something impossible happened. The wounds had changed. The autopsy photo showed damage completely different from what the Dallas doctors had described. The famous Zapruder film shows Kennedy's head snapping violently backward when the fatal shot strikes. Basic physics tells us that if a bullet strikes from behind, the head moves forward. Kennedy's head moved backward. The film was immediately confiscated by the Secret Service and wasn't shown publicly for 12 years. When it finally emerged, the American public saw evidence of shots from the front. Witnesses in Dealey Plaza that day reported hearing shots from the Grassy Knoll, a raised area to the right front of the motorcade. Multiple people saw smoke and a figure with a rifle behind the fence. A Dallas police officer ran toward the knoll immediately after the shots, encountering a man who flashed Secret Service credentials. But the Secret Service later confirmed that no agents were stationed on the Grassy Knoll. So who was that man? The magic bullet theory stands as perhaps the most absurd explanation in the official story. The Warren Commission claimed that a single bullet entered Kennedy's back, exited his throat, entered Governor Connolly's back, exited his chest, shattered his wrist, and embedded in his thigh. This bullet was found in pristine condition on a stretcher, barely deformed despite allegedly shattering bones, and passing through two bodies. Ballistics experts have called this physically impossible. But what was the motive? Kennedy had begun pulling back from Vietnam against the wishes of military leadership. He had fired CIA Director Allen Dulles after the Bay of Pigs disaster and threatened to splinter the agency into 1,000 pieces. He was negotiating a nuclear test ban treaty with the Soviet Union, infuriating hardliners. The military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower had warned about had reasons to want Kennedy gone. The Kennedy family's own investigation reveals how deep the cover-up went. Robert Kennedy never believed the Warren Commission's findings. He privately conducted his own investigation, documenting a conspiracy involving anti-Castro Cubans, mafia figures, and rogue CIA operatives. In 1968, as Robert Kennedy prepared to run for president himself and promised to reopen the investigation if elected, he too was assassinated. The coincidence is staggering. Marilyn Monroe's death 16 months before the assassination connects to this web of intrigue. Monroe had affairs with both Kennedy brothers. More importantly, she knew about their plans regarding Cuba and CIA operations. When she threatened to hold a press conference and reveal what she knew, she died under suspicious circumstances. FBI files released in 2006 reveal that agents were ordered to seize and destroy documents from her home within hours of her death. The paper trail that could have exposed the truth was systematically eliminated. CIA officers burned entire filing cabinets of documents about Oswald's visits to Mexico City. Secret Service logs from the motorcade route vanished. Autopsy photographs went missing. Key evidence was lost or destroyed, and any document that survived was classified under national security provisions for decades. When Congress reinvestigated the assassination in the 1970s, they concluded that Kennedy was probably assassinated as the result of a conspiracy. They found evidence of at least 4 shots fired, not 3. They discovered that the FBI had failed to investigate organized crime connections. They documented the CIA's obstruction of the Warren Commission's investigation, yet their final report was largely ignored. The National Archives holds over 5 million pages of assassination-related documents. Despite laws requiring their release by 2017, thousands of files remain classified. President Trump postponed the release in 2017, citing national security concerns at the request of the CIA. President Biden postponed it again in 2021. What could possibly be in these documents that poses a national security threat 60 years later? The only logical answer is that these documents would expose American intelligence agencies' involvement in the assassination of their own president. Think about what we know. The CIA was running assassination programs against foreign leaders. They were working with organized crime to eliminate Castro. They had motive. Kennedy threatened their power and operations. They had means, trained assassins, weapons, access to the motorcade route. They had opportunity, Oswald's connections to the agency, Ruby's mob ties, the ability to alter evidence and silence witnesses. The Zapruder film shows the limousine without bullet-resistant glass. The Secret Service had removed the bubble top that morning despite threats against Kennedy in Dallas. The motorcade route had been published in newspapers days in advance. Every security protocol was violated. This wasn't negligence. This was preparation. Lyndon Johnson, who became president the moment Kennedy died, had his own dark connections. Johnson was facing scandals that would have ended his political career. Kennedy was planning to drop Johnson from the 1964 ticket. But with Kennedy dead, Johnson ascended to the presidency, and all investigations into his activities mysteriously evaporated. Johnson stacked the Warren Commission with establishment figures who could be controlled, including Allen Dulles, the CIA director Kennedy had fired. Deep Throat, the Watergate informant, was later revealed to be FBI Associate Director Mark Felt. Before his death, Felt admitted that the FBI's investigation of the Kennedy assassination was compromised from the start. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover received a memo the day before the assassination warning of a possible attempt on Kennedy's life in Dallas. Hoover did nothing. After the assassination, Hoover personally supervised the destruction of evidence. The acoustics evidence is damning. Analysis of audio recordings from a police motorcycle in the motorcade revealed 4 distinct sound patterns consistent with gunfire, not 3. The timing between shots was too short for Oswald's bolt-action rifle to fire 3 times. The direction of sound waves indicated shots from multiple locations. What about the dozens of witnesses who died under mysterious circumstances? Dorothy Kilgallen, a journalist who interviewed Jack Ruby and claimed to have explosive information, died of a drug overdose before she could publish her findings. Her notes disappeared. The statistical probability of so many key witnesses dying unnaturally has been calculated at 1 in 100 trillion. The medical evidence remains a battleground. The official autopsy was conducted by military pathologists with no experience in gunshot wounds. The civilian doctors at Parkland Hospital were never consulted by the Warren Commission. Kennedy's brain itself, preserved as evidence, vanished from a locked safe at Bethesda Naval Hospital. Without the brain, crucial evidence about the trajectory of bullets was forever lost. The CIA's connection to Oswald goes beyond Mexico City. Documents released in 2017 reveal that Oswald was part of a fake defector program designed to plant American agents inside the Soviet Union. His defection was staged. His return to America was planned from the start. He was an intelligence asset, activated for the final time on November 22, 1963. The Secret Service destroyed their files on the Kennedy assassination in violation of federal law. Among the destroyed documents were protective survey reports for Dallas, shift reports from agents on duty that day, and threat assessments that should have prevented the motorcade route through Dealey Plaza. Without these documents, we can never know what warnings were ignored. The final insult to truth and justice is the continued classification of documents. Under the JFK Records Act of 1992, all assassination-related documents were supposed to be released by 2017, yet thousands remain classified. The CIA claims their release would compromise ongoing operations. What operations could possibly be ongoing 60 years later? The only logical conclusion is that these documents would expose truths the intelligence community still considers too dangerous to reveal. President Kennedy once said, "The great enemy of truth is very often not the lie, but the myth, persistent, persuasive, and unrealistic." The myth of the lone gunman has persisted for over 60 years, but the truth, documented in thousands of pages of suppressed evidence, tells a different story. A story of conspiracy, betrayal, and murder at the highest levels of American power. The question is not whether there was a conspiracy. The evidence for conspiracy is overwhelming. The question is whether we have the courage to demand the truth and hold the powerful accountable. Because if they could kill a president and cover it up for 60 years, what else are they capable of? The assassination of President John F. Kennedy wasn't just the murder of a man. It was the murder of transparency and trust in democratic institutions. It marked the moment when the American people learned that their government could and would lie to them, could and would cover up the truth, could and would get away with murder. And 60 years later, they're still getting away with it.